Hello, good friends. We're starting the second part of our very latest game review recording. In the first part, we discussed ASO marketing, and now we'll talk more about the product itself. If you want to scale up and get published, go to the CAS.AI website and fill out all the details in the publishing form. If you just want to monetize your game, go to the CAS.AI website and fill out the mediation form. Let's go and take a look at everything our team has found. Anton, as always, why don't you start and then we'll continue.
I'll jump right in with some dialogue. Hi, Misha. If I saw correctly, there was a reference to lumbering. Overall, it feels like there's an understanding of what the reference consists of. The game guides you through tasks, but minor hurdles exist. Clarity is sometimes lacking. Nevertheless, yes, the game has kept me engaged almost from the very beginning. However, there is a noticeable sense of imbalance. Others will discuss this further. They'll explain more. For now, I'll just give a brief overview. What matters most in games like this, it's that feeling of satisfaction and getting absorbed, where people bustle around doing their jobs and taking care of tasks, items are replenished, others disappear. It is all here until you hit a bottleneck in the economic cycle. So you either need a manager or you have to rush to some part of the production to deal with a resource shortage there. This is where I think the game starts to have problems. For example, with Frozen City, I thought the game was bigger. It's a reference, which is why I'm using Frozen City as an example, though it might be smaller. I'll refer to Lumber as well, but I think that even if you strip away all the narrative there and just leave the game framework like a spreadsheet, there would still be a certain level of interest. Why? Because there's a certain progression there. Wood turns into some new resource, then you start needing that, then you have a lot of wood, then a manager gets involved, and so on. Here, it's probably closer to Adventure or Lumber, though I don't remember Lumber very well. It's been a long time since I played it. Here, everything is based on a single resource, coins, and I think this is a significant problem, because I am not really seeing any kind of clear resource cycle here. So everything comes down to coins for me, and I'm either waiting for them or suddenly getting a large amount all at once. After playing several of these farms, lands, and collectives, I still couldn't quite figure out which resource or production is actually the bottleneck at any given moment. Because of this, I just wandered all over the screen, everywhere. I kept sending the same manager to different productions, but I just couldn't solve any single specific production task. So I was more trying to figure out what my problem was, like how can I boost my coin earnings, what do I need to speed up, and how, well, if we leave aside watching video ads. I think, after all, it's the hiring of managers. Here it's implemented rather weakly, or maybe it gets revealed later. Game over. As for metrics, can you share them?
R1 is somewhere between 20 and 30 by the 7th day. Well, depending specifically on the country, it achieved its best performance in Canada, where about 5 to 7% remain. Not very impressive.
But there are two pieces of news here, one good and one bad. The bad news is that R1 is really low, and that's what needs to be worked on first. The good news is that, and my colleagues can correct me if I'm wrong, games like this do pay off. The traffic in such games should pay off in about a week. We should be seeing something like 100% weekly ROAS. So this game doesn't require you to focus on the 30th day, concentrate on just 1 week, and then rely on the whales. Try to keep the business in the black when scaling up. Let me correct myself here. Not the 7th day, but the 14th. 14th day ROAS, meaning 2 weeks. That's what matters here.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell, so you don't miss any game dev news or new case studies from our world.
I did not have a great deal of time to get to know the game, but I did manage to play several different sessions. My first impression was somewhat more chaotic regarding the flow and the core loop. I didn't really understand what was expected of me at all. It was quite difficult to figure things out. I have examined other Tycoon games, and yes, indeed, as far as I can tell, you start out small, and then the cycle gradually, the core loop, expands and grows, with new actions being added and introduced. Another thing that was missing was some kind of satisfying and calming element. For example, I have a golden wheat field. I would actually enjoy harvesting the wheat myself, at least at the beginning, before I hire qualified workers who will take care of the field. But I would like to start with the wheat myself, harvest it, start selling the wheat, and then develop it into processing, like hay, grain, and so on. And essentially, each step, that's how I would envision my progression, which I really felt was missing, the very thing Anton mentioned. Also, whenever I made a specific kind of upgrade or something else, I truly and deeply missed being able to see visually how that was happening on the game field. Because the fact that I clicked something, some button, and upgraded it in a window, sure, that's cool and all, but honestly, it doesn't really feel like anything. I just pressed a button and it was hard to understand what exactly was affected. So maybe For me, it would actually be more familiar if I could upgrade production directly with a button on the field. Because that way you don't have to search through different windows to find the thing you want to upgrade. It's right there and easy to see. I don't know, I just think it would be more user-friendly and convenient. And yeah, as it is, all my interaction with the game happens through Windows. It's not as fun as interacting with objects on the field, at least partially. Or, I don't know, it's pretty common to have a feature where when you earn profit, you see piles of money on the field. You tap on them and they satisfyingly fly into your wallet and you can see, cool, I'm getting more and more of them, earning more and more. Then with orders. Maybe I've played too many farm games, but I was disappointed by the order mechanic because I expected, for example, that if I got a premium order and a few regular ones, I could tap on a regular one and save the premium one for later, maybe for an ad, but it disappeared, it just wasn't there anymore. I don't understand why, if I chose to fulfill one order, the others I had in the queue just vanished, they're gone now. It's the same with completing an order. The button just changes, the claim button, and it feels like it's not enough. I want more visual feedback like, hey, I completed it, good job, I made great progress. And the Clients tab seemed somewhat confusing and unclear to me because when I tap on it, I don't get any specific information. There are just some future clients and some current clients listed, but it doesn't actually open any relevant orders or anything else, so it seemed a bit useless for my needs.
Thank you, Valeria.
Regarding the clients, this is actually a brand new gameplay feature that hasn't been fully implemented yet. Its primary purpose is to capture the player's interest not just in upgrading the factory, but in developing long-term relationships with clients. In other words, the better you fulfill an order. There's even a detailed rating system for completed orders, which usually depends on whether you meet the deadline for that order or not. You receive a rating, and the higher your rating, the more you will earn. Currently, in this specific section, you can only see exactly what your current rating is. With each specific client, accordingly, from that client, you'll either get a bonus or, on the contrary, a penalty.
If you want to monetize your game immediately, quickly with 15 ad networks, go to the CAS.AI website and fill out the form, and we'll help you with this very quickly.
The first thing I'd like to point out is that, in my opinion, the production chain given to the player at the start is just too long. That is, you harvest the wheat, then the wheat is transported in buckets, the buckets are processed. Then they're taken to the warehouse with sacks and so on and so forth. And only after all that do you finally sell the goods. So the chain is long, and I think it's hard for the player to handle it at the very beginning. So it's worth trying. To test leaving just a simple chain, making only one type of product for sale, since right now there are 3 from the start. Simply leave a single one behind and try out this minimal core loop. Present it to the player initially and see how it performs. And then, once the player has learned on that, gradually unlock the next steps, instead of giving, say, 3 cycles all at once like it is now. And from this, if I remember correctly, Anton mentioned, I think that it's highly inefficient, or he doesn't understand where to place these managers, which specific link in the chain is weaker. And here, I think that's exactly the issue at hand, because you need to place these managers precisely in the spots the player has already figured out. Right, so here, when he tries it himself, practices a bit, and then this core loop needs to be automated so that he doesn't have to go there himself, click around, or collect all these orders. They, for example, did all themselves. So first, the player learns the initial short gameplay cycle manually, then appoints a dedicated manager, realizes that everything is now fully automated, and finally moves on to the next cycle. So the idea behind this is to create a short core loop and reinforce that loop by utilizing managers. Also, even after completing the tutorial, I was still quite confused about where I complete orders, what rewards I am earning, or what my main objectives are. Specifically, these 3 tasks that I need to do should be right at the top of the UI. They're not visible, and during the tutorial, I just clicked through them too. I think, wait, what am I supposed to do? And you don't really understand right away that these are your objectives. And even when you finally complete them, they just fill up with green. There is absolutely no blinking and no special animation to show that you can now claim it and receive your reward. These 3 tasks blend in with the top control panel, so at some point I just ended up like this. What does the game even want from me right now, and what exactly am I supposed to do? Also, in the initial tutorial, it would probably be very good to clearly show that when your total currency balance drops and goes negative, your workers stop working, get upset, basically refuse to work anymore, and all production comes to a halt. And then suddenly, when it seemed like I had a lot of currency, I hired a bunch of stuff and everything just stopped, like it was waiting for me to fulfill an order and for my currency balance to go back up. Initially, the player should be told about this, or at least there should be some kind of warning, like be careful not to let your balance go into the negative. Also, when I built my first farm, I was really looking forward to that transition. I initially thought now I'll have a second farm with a different kind of production. Well, it is clear why. I mean, as a developer, I understood the reason why it was done this way, that it's essentially the same thing, but at least change the field there, show it from a different angle, rotate the camera somehow so that visually it at least looks different. Or, for example, instead of harvesting wheat, have it be buckwheat or something like that, roughly speaking. Basically, at first glance, there aren't really any major critical remarks overall. I figured things out pretty quickly through the tutorial what's what, but the explanation in the tutorial itself, because you're given a long sequence right away and then you don't know where to put this manager or how to use him more efficiently, and that was the main sticking point. I think this could be solved if you make these core loops a bit shorter.
Thank you, Misha, thanks.
In general, a good practice in idle games, again, to make the core loop very clear and straightforward, is to start with direct manual interaction. What we originally called a facility when we were making idle. A facility is each individual building that produces something, including the lore house, including the vehicles that transport goods. And it's considered good practice that your first actions are performed manually. For example, you harvest wheat, and not only do you harvest it, but you click on it yourself. On the mill machine, you make it spin once, maybe twice by clicking, and it spins again, producing goods. And this way, the player understands the core loop through their manual actions. And then the automation features either becomes fully available after reaching a certain upgrade level, or again, you can always choose to introduce the manager mechanic where you assign a dedicated manager and the entire process becomes completely automatic. Now I will transition to talking about managers in Lumber Inc. As far as I can personally recall, managers were also a bit of a problem in the sense that they did not help to develop the overall strategy. Regarding some kind of visual certification, yes, in general, these idle games, tycoons, they thrive on the fact that you can actually see the visual development of your base, your facility. I felt that was missing upgrading things there. The lore house, the cars, I honestly didn't notice whether they changed or not. It's missing what they usually show in creatives for idle games. You start with a small factory, then it gets a bit bigger, then even bigger, and then suddenly you're a tycoon. Right now, I'm doing this specific type of micromanagement with my buildings, but I feel like I'm missing some kind of visual feedback.
Hello. They have said a lot of relevant points. There are, of course, a very significant number of various problems here. Overall, the 3D visuals look remarkably impressive. The animations are generally decent, and the UI is quite well done, so there are no complaints about that. Now, let's move on to the unfortunate negative aspects and drawbacks. There are quite a lot of them. First of all, the field is way too big, and as the guys mentioned, you don't really understand what's going on. It's huge, and you're constantly moving the screen, plus the default zoom out is very far, so you always have to search for someone. Here, I would make the field smaller right away, much more compact. I really don't understand why the car takes a detour to get somewhere when there's a short distance at the bottom. Your vehicle takes a detour. And furthermore, there's no option to speed it up by tapping on it. This level of interactivity is exactly what that minigame you wanted to add is designed to provide. If you don't have some clickable elements to speed up production, and it's also accompanied by haptic feedback. We've done a lot of projects like this, and we've also had problems, especially when you progress further and the balance starts to slow down, the upgrades and all that. That's when these clickers provide that interaction and increase playtime. So you definitely need to reduce the distance and have the car come up from below. And I would start with you having this wide field with a wooden sieve, where at first you collect the flour and even manually push it yourself. That's for the early stages, the first session. So I would secure and lock all of those settings at the beginning for the first 5 minutes. I'd configure a cache unlock mechanism, so for the first 3 minutes you're tapping. Because I went through the tutorial, and then they just let me go, and I didn't understand anything after that. By the way, I never even got out of the negative. They just dumped 20 steps of the tutorial on me and let me go, and after that I had no idea what to do. So the retention rate here is very low. Players also don't know what to do next. As for the other features, they are There's an overwhelming amount here, but I absolutely don't need any of it because I currently lack the necessary financial resources, most importantly, and there are quite a lot of features. The game already has a massive variety of different elements, but unfortunately you can't control it right now because the balance is extremely unbalanced and lacking polish, and content unlocks don't happen gradually. And secondly, the tutorial is way too long. I just clicked around, clicked some more, and then they let me go. There aren't any interactive elements where, as people say, you do things manually by hand and that's it. So, 20% retention is one possible outcome. And probably the players who stick around are those who have played a lot of idle games and are just looking for something to upgrade.
If I summarize the situation, maybe someone will correct me, but basically the onboarding is quite significantly weak. There's already a lot going on in the game, but the onboarding itself is somewhat lacking. And that's exactly what explains the relatively decent R7 compared to R1. So your R7 compared to R1 is about 30%, roughly speaking. That's already highly respectable. But the main challenge is with R1, and to address R1, you will require a higher quality product vision. That is exactly how I would put it. Misha, thank you so much for being here with us today, guys. If you are interested in investing in an idle game that is at a late stage of development, please just let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. We'll be getting in touch and give you Misha's contact information. Thank you all very much. That's it. Goodbye. Subscribe to the CAS.AI channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on monetization strategies and case studies from the world of mobile games.